Alright guys, today we have a very special video. So joining me today is Costi from The Life of Costi, and we're going to be having a discussion on the book Bride by Ali Hazelwood. So this book is about a vampire who is sent into werewolf territory where she's made to marry the alpha of their pack for reasons which she's kind of kept secret at the beginning.
Yeah, it's a very interesting book. I mean, it's the first foray of Ali Hazelwood, into the urban paranormal kind of style. Because before she's only done a book about people that work in research and everything that has to do with research environments and like strong women that work in that field. I mean, she comes from writing on Wattpad and so on, so like fan fictions. It was really interesting going into it. I was really excited, I have to say. So have you ever heard about Ali Hazelwood before reading this book?
No, actually, I'd not heard of the author before, but when you said that it was written by a scientist, that definitely did spark my curiosity, because I wondered how that would be reflected in the pages. Although saying that, when I first kind of read the synopsis, and I saw that, you know, this werewolf is meeting the alpha, I was just like, isn't that a bit cliche? And so I kind of did a little bit of an eye roll at the start. But having said that, when I got into it, it wasn't as stereotypical as I thought it might be, which was definitely a positive.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, she does follow her own hero's journey, I would say, her own romance journey in a way. I mean, her first book, which is not Love on the Brain, but the one before, we'll put the title somewhere, and was very much a fanfic of Tyler Ren. So she just does follow that like kind of like blueprint for the characters, and it has that kind of idea here, like enemies to lovers kind of genre, which can be debated. I don't want to go too much into spoilers, but I have to say that she still has some STEM kind of in this book. You being a STEM major, how did you find it? Especially like having certain things insert here and there.
I mean, I really like it because I think you also kind of come away having learned something. So whenever she goes into, I don't know, talking about something, you can tell she's done her research on that particular function of whatever it is she wants to talk about, and she's actually giving you something to take away. I know when I've written stuff like that in my work, people have said maybe it's a bit scientific, like people might not understand that. So I can kind of see where the counter-argument comes from. But as a STEM student myself, I definitely enjoy reading it more. So that was definitely an element I did appreciate.
Yeah, no, definitely me too. And I mean, like, I honestly am a sucker for everything that is like paranormal, but like urban paranormal and or like fantasy paranormal. There is such a blurred line between the genres that it's difficult, but like something that isn't completely like a copycat of other titles, Twilight, like that has been kind of a lot of time in the making, and I've kind of loved this for that because it doesn't like reference that kind of love triangle or like we are in a scary moody city. It completely has a different idea. And that's why I liked it. I also kind of liked the fact that the heroine, she has to deal a lot with the humans, so she's a vampire, but she's almost human in a ways, and then she ends up with the werewolves, or the weres, as they're called in this book, but the werewolves, like the werewolf alpha, lived like in Switzerland, and he's an architect, so like he's a completely like humanized kind of person, and of course like you can't really see that they're werewolves until they shift, like they're shifters in reality. So you can really see yourself in those characters, I feel like. Did you Did you like that?
Yeah, no, definitely. I like that it wasn't completely supernatural in the sense that you couldn't really relate to it. All the characters felt very down to earth. And the fact that she was basically a human, like we didn't really see much of her vampire nature or abilities, you know, aside from when she needed to feed. Made it more interesting, I agree. And it made it more unique and original than it would have been if it was just like everything else.
Yeah.
Another series that I absolutely loved for doing similar thing was Cirque du Freak by Darren Shan. If you're new to this channel, then you may not know what I'm talking about, but I've raved about this book series many times because I just think it's probably one of my favourite series. And yeah, they did vampires differently, like here, and I think that's definitely what made it stand out. This is not your first time reading an Ali Hazelwood book. How do you think it compares to the other books?
Oh my god. So I'm, if you hadn't discovered, I'm originally Italian, and Ali Hazelwood, although she writes with this name that is very Anglo-Saxon sounding, English sounding, she's Italian actually. So I read her first book because it had all of this like rave around it, and I was like, okay, well, I have to read it, and I liked it, but I was like, okay, well, fine. And then I read Love on the Brain. Then I met her actually at rare events in Florence, and I discovered that she's Italian and she had to go to the States because it's difficult to do research in Italy. And I won't go into that, but basically it motioned me to read more of her books. So to today, the only book that I haven't read of hers is Checkmate. I always have this hero that has this kind of like, I'm always almost in love with her, but I am searching for reasons in myself for not like going full in. And the heroine is always kind of like blind to this love that the hero is trying to show in a way. Not love, but like definitely affection at first. And this is something that you can see all throughout her books. And I mean, it's her style. It's like Mariana Zapata for other romance book. I'm sure you haven't read it because like it's very romance related. It's not fantasy at all. But like she's slow burn, and she always does the slow burn, and like they get together only in the last chapter, and like it's like that. And she keeps selling. Like she's been selling books since the beginning of the 2010s. So I don't see her changing that. But honestly, I don't see it as a fault either, because the characters are varied enough that the rest is okay. But some of the characters in this book, in my opinion, deserve another book, and maybe that could be something different, in my opinion.
I'd be interested to hear which characters you think that of, because I think the same thing.
Oh, there are two characters. Well, I mean,
Okay.
I'm talking about female characters. Serena, definitely, because I mean, like we haven't. It's kind of like Danica from the Sarah J. Maas Crescent City books. Like she's so important in the whole book, but like we've never actually met her and like got to know how she was. But anyways, and she seems to have a love interest already, and maybe like I don't know if we have a sequel, maybe in a few years' time, Anna. Because she's so interesting as a character, I love her so much.
She's very sweet.
If you don't know, we're talking about the sister of the main character, and again, like, it's something that's not a spoiler, I don't think so.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think Serena definitely, we get a very small glimpse of her, and we only really see her relationship to Misery, but we don't actually know much about her life. And given what we discover about her at the end of the book, I think it makes it all the more interesting, and we really do want to learn more about how everything happened. The other character I was thinking was Owen.
Right, that would be so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the points I put in there, but I loved his kind of character, the way at the start he's kind of almost like teasing and kind of joking, and he doesn't seem that close to his sister. It seems more like a playful relationship. But then you kind of see just how much he really cares about her. I really liked it when he came back in at the end.
Yeah, I mean, having narration that is first person male would be a first for Ali. And I think that definitely she has the potential to do it. So why not, Ali? If you're listening. But yeah, so when definitely, and we wouldn't know necessarily his love interest. Maybe it could be Serena, we don't know. And definitely for Serena, I'll stuck with Serena. Okay, anyways, the nature, like the nature of herself would be a little bit easier than for what happened with our dear Misery. That, by the way, calling a character Misery from the start already, I knew that like she was gonna face some obstacles. It's kind of like this literature method of kind of like foretelling certain things, and but I kind of am like, if you have this name, I kind of would like to change it if I could. I don't know if I would keep this name.
Yeah, I suppose it's probably in the culture of vampires, it's probably not as inappropriate as it would be for us.
You have Misery and Owen!
But that is also true. It reminded me of Hiccup from How to Train Your Dragon. It had the similar kind of vibe.
Oh, yeah.
I think one thing actually that like heroes like that have in common is that they're not really overpowered, you know, and just able to do everything. They're definitely very flawed. I think that's what makes us drawn to them as well as readers, because you see that in spite of, you know, all of the obstacles, they're still able to achieve their goals.
Yeah, she's flawed, but she's not. She learns from her flaws. I feel like she's not flawed. She is traumatized from being. It's something that it's said at the beginning of the book. She's the. There is a name for it. She's basically
apathetic.
No, she's given to the humans, like the human side.
Collateral.
The collateral.
Yes.
She's the collateral for 18 years, and like basically she's like renounced from, like, her whole society renounces her, and even when she comes back, like, she's not understood because she's the one that's like the outcast kind of sort of. So like she has to heal from that. Even when she moves into the house with Lo, she's like in the wardrobe, and she's constantly like closing herself in the wardrobe, even when it's like nighttime where she should go out and like live her life. She's closing herself in the wardrobe when only Anna is able to like get her out, which is the way I think that like probably she's closing herself because she's like already like sure that like she's gonna have a terrible 1 year, and she just has to like, I don't know, like grit her teeth and just like get through. And the fact that Anna kind of like pulls her out, and also subsequently Lo, and also the fact that she has to fight for Serena is able to show her that what her trauma had made her suppress is actually a great strength, maybe.
Yeah, no, sorry. When I say flawed, I mean like it's nice to see that she's had so many obstacles.
Yeah.
And that she's able to. We get to see her overcome them.
Yeah.
I think that's quite satisfying. Having those hurdles and seeing how she progresses as a character from the beginning of the book, when she's a lot more reserved and unable to kind of almost enjoy life. It's quite sad because her whole life has really just been about satisfying others and doing what the greater good is.
Yeah.
And we see as she develops a relationship with Lo that she actually starts liking life again. And I think she says her and Serena get into this argument because Serena's like, you need to care about one other thing that isn't me. Because Misery really didn't have anything in her life that she really kind of enjoyed, except perhaps computing. Which was a part I quite liked, actually. I liked learning about computing and, you know, seeing her be very tech savvy. I thought it was a unique addition to the character that made her stand out.
Yes, definitely something that sets apart Ali's characters, being like badass women in STEM. I think that's a reason. I'm not sure about this, but I think it's one of the reasons that she lists about reason why she started to want to write, because she saw all of these characters that were like, oh, I'm a woman, that I'm out of a job, or I'm a babysitter, or whatever. But actually you want to portray also like STEM women in STEM fields are actually her second book, Love on the Brain, is like her character works for NASA. Like that is the dream of like a lot of girls, and then they're told, you know, you have to face so many obstacles. It's a male-dominated like field, and so you don't want to go into it. But actually, she's like a badass woman in the end. Like she discovers that she's like as strong as a were because she's a vampire, but also because she's like strong as a person. And simply that's that. I mean, her father is strong, but also she's strong. Do we want to go through the points?
Let's do it.
Okay.
So we basically prepared a couple of things that we kind of noticed through the book, things to comment on or that we wanted to talk about. Wolf anatomy.
Oh yeah.
So she really did her research into wolf anatomy.
She didn't do her research. She's a woman that's like late millennial that's lived through the era of Wattpad. And werewolves have animal anatomy, and if you have to deal with like animals, especially wolves and dogs, mate in a certain way. And so they kind of brought the same idea. Honestly, I don't understand why they did it, because in my opinion, it wasn't necessary. It just adds a thing of like weirdness to the whole thing.
It did make it a little bit strange. I mean, I wrote it because I thought it was amusing. It was an interesting choice, and it was interesting to read.
I think it was her kind of like calling back to all of her era, all of the readers that have gone through that.
Yeah.
I feel like it's gonna be very fun for everyone that's like actually has read that part of like the web, and is gonna read, like it's grown up and now it's reading like actual books, and like she's gonna be like, oh my god, it's so fun, and adds that level of like impossibility of this mating bond, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah. I didn't actually know any of that stuff on Wattpad. I just assumed it was because of her scientific background. She wanted to keep things completely accurate. Like she didn't want to miss out any
Maybe it's
details.
that. I mean, like we're just making possibilities,
Yeah.
making up ideas.
It's interesting to see other opinions on it.
Okay. Oh yeah, sequel. Definitely, we agree that there should be a sequel.
There has to be a sequel. Yeah.
I mean, I know that her next slotted to publish book is another like return to her normal like romance book, but Ali, if you're watching this, make a sequel.
Yeah.
Make a sequel. Yeah.
So I will go for another one. Love Being an Architect was this one. I thought it was a cool addition that he wasn't just, you know, some alpha whose life was to serve the pack. And I thought it was really interesting that he kept, you know, his drawings like locked up in his drawer. And I think it was almost kind of sad because you kind of see how passionate he is about it, but he has to put the needs of the others, you know, ahead of his own, which is exactly what Misery's been doing her whole life. And I think, I guess, by locking up it inside a cupboard in his room, he almost kind of locks away that dream which he had. So I thought it was nice to see that part of him, but also quite sad that he was never able to live out that dream.
Usually it's always like, oh yeah, I have to put like other people before me and kind of like that. And I understand that, and it's great, but it's something that I've seen over and over again, and I feel like if we see sequels, hopefully, because I mean like he's just been established as the new alpha, right?
Yeah.
So maybe he'll be able to like use in a way like inside of his pack or inside of the other packs, because like he's like almost one of the most powerful packs, like he governs one of the most powerful packs. Maybe he's going to be able to use that for the advantage of the pack, we don't know.
Yeah, that would be quite cool
That
to
would
see
be
those
cool.
skills in use, instead of just having it as a distant dream type of thing.
Because he used to be like, he was like, oh, I had this amazing life when I was in Switzerland, like blah blah blah. Literally when I was reading it, I had like this little like cinematic scene where he was like dancing around like the Lake Geneva and whatever, and like then he was like called to be like a good person for his pack, and then like he just had to go away. and then they had to like give up everything. But also she's like a computer genius or geek or whatever you want to call it. Maybe they'll be able to build, I don't know, cool like games for Anna or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, with her web design abilities and his abilities to draw, maybe they could create something pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely, because like there are so many structures. I read in a review like that there is no map of the different kingdoms and the different areas. Like even in the vampires, there's like the vampire's nest and the vampire's castle, whatever it's called, where the wedding is celebrated. So there is like different infrastructures. I'm sure there is like a hospital for the werewolves or whatever. So
yeah.
They need other people. So if they live like humans, then they need other things like humans.
Yeah, I mean, they did say kind of that. I don't think there was hospitals for werewolves, because when Anna was unwell, they didn't know what to do because.
Yeah, usually they self-heal.
They self-heal, yeah.
But then now we have that mix.
Then it opens up kind of new possibilities.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll talk about it at the end if you're in for the secrets, for the spoilers. Oh yeah, what do you think about mates in this book and generally being in the recent literature being more and more of a canon for like coupling instead of just people meeting each other and falling in love, like having to be destined to be together?
Yeah, I mean, I think typically I'm not the biggest fan. I mean, it's just because from a pragmatic point of view first, like the odds of you meeting that person are next to nothing, and also it diminishes any relationship that maybe you do have because, oh, well, they're not going to be the one, if that makes sense. But in the context of this book, it was strange the way they did it, because I suppose one person could be one's mate and then it could not be reciprocated, and I thought that was almost cruel to have people paired to different people. So I thought that was an interesting choice.
I don't know. I'm seeing mates and a lot, but also, and I mean, I understand that in certain canons of species, it's like for example for elves, it's like basically the only way to like pair up, like they only do mates. I understand that in a way, and like they mate for life or whatever, because like it's just always been like that, or at least like the old literature that I read has always been like that. But for example, for like I never read it for, well, I've read it for werewolves, because like also we have it in Twilight. So anyways, I'm kind of like, yeah, they could like fall in love instead of like being mates, like for Jacob and whatever, like they could have waited for her to be older. But in this case, I mean, like I get it, because like if they were mates, then maybe they wouldn't have stayed together, but they could have also fallen in love like more organically. Yeah,
I mean, I think the moment that you realize that they're mates, because I don't think it's concealed very well from the start.
No, it's like something that you get from like chapter 4.
Yeah, the moment like he says the comment about how she smells, and then you find out that that's a big thing in mating, then you kind of figure it out. And I suppose that does take some of the fun out of it, because you know that they have to get together, you know, if they are mates. And it also eliminates the fact that, because Misery can't have a mate in the same way, it means that it has to almost be reciprocated. It's not like Misery could have a different person to love.
I think now it's the time to go into spoiler territory. What do you think?
Yes, let's do it. So if you're watching this and you don't want anything to be spoiled, now's the time to close your device, and make sure to check out the Life of Costy's channel, and I'll put it in the description below.
I appreciate that, and I'll see you soon. Alright, so I was wondering the background story, kind of like what's going on, the bad guy, whatever, like we know who's the bad guy. Do you think that it could have held up if we weren't talking about like how much like the reader wants to see the happy ever after with like the main characters and whatever?
I think possibly it wouldn't have been nearly as impactful, I don't think. because I really liked the twist where we find out that Selena's half and half.
Yeah.
And I like that her and Anna are the same. But without the romance, I don't know if it would be as impactful, because in the sense of like how much happens during the book, it is really romance orientated. Like not much of the book is attributed to the plot. So I think without that, the book would have gone through significantly quicker. But that's really what the point of the book was. It wasn't supposed to be like, you know, some adventure story. It was a romantasy. So I think that it's completely fine. It does exactly what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, yes, of course, like there is all this turmoil about in between the different reigns of like the werewolves, the humans, and like the changing governors of the humans. So all of these, and also the vampires, of course. And so all of this, of course, is like good background. I feel like my heart like slowly dropped when like she's like taken from, and like when we discovered it's her dad, because I don't know, like we don't really meet her dad and she never like talks badly about her dad, although like I had a thing like an inkling that he wasn't the best person. Like she never actually says, oh, he is like such an awful person and whatever, like, and I think that was like a good like twist at the end.
That definitely caught me by surprise. Yeah. I didn't think it was Emery, given the fact that there were no communications coming from their household, but at the same time, there was no one that I thought it was. And then when it came out that it was her father and she got taken, I thought that was interesting. That definitely caught me by surprise. All right, and the final thing that I wanted to say was, there's a scene where Misery and Lo are talking, and they're talking about mates, and Misery is probing for answers. And obviously at that point, it's kind of established that Lo's mate is Gabby, and everything he's saying makes sense for it to be Gabby. And so I didn't really kind of question that. But then when we find out that Gabby was never his mate at all, I reread that chapter, and it actually made complete sense for both Misery and Gabby. So it was really cool how she managed to write that to fit both scenarios, and rereading it again was just really interesting.
I think that it's there are so many people that like leave comments on Goodreads. Shout out to Goodreads. And they leaved comments about how like Hazelwood, is she the best writer ever? No. And I'm like, yeah, maybe she's not like Dante or like, I don't know, Oscar Wilde, but definitely she has a way of capturing the female intellect in a way, in my opinion, and also general human interactions. Because whenever you have a boyfriend, I don't know if she has a boyfriend or husband, I don't know her, but definitely she's had friends that were in a situation where there are always miscommunications, and the miscommunication trope, I'll just put it on the table, something that I usually don't like. But I think in this case it wasn't necessarily miscommunication, much as basically it was Misery that, as most girls do that don't have a narcissistic complex, is just saying, oh, it would be too good if I was actually the mate of my husband that is treating me well, and I love his sister, and I kind of have this found family that I'm actually finding myself to growing to love. And on the other side, you have him who's like trying to convince himself that he's not in love with this person and it's not his mate. Like, vampires don't have mates, so technically she doesn't have to choose him. But in a way, I think that like the magic of mating in a way has gotten to her as well, because
it does feel that way.
Yeah, otherwise like she wouldn't be like that. Yeah. So if you were to have to give this book a general like final like grade or final star rating 0 to 5, what would it be?
I mean, I normally despise star ratings. They're very difficult. So
I know,
guess...
and it's very outside of. I know that I have kind of given you a book that is like more in my style, but I found that it would like be a good bridge between like my romance addiction and your more fantasy kind of style, and also what you write. So maybe
I would say definitely I found myself wanting to read it. It didn't feel like, oh no, I've got to read this book Costy's given me. Let's just go for it, which I have felt before when I'm reading books. So in my opinion, that definitely means it's above a 3.5.
Okay, great.
Now, whether it goes to 4 or not, I don't think it can hit a 4.5, purely because I'm very strict with my grading, and there's not many things that can go to a 4.5. So I'd say it could be a 3.5 or it could be a 4. I would find it hard to decide. I enjoyed reading it a lot though, so I would definitely recommend the book.
Yes, okay.
How about yourself?
I agree with recommending the books. I mean, like, I would, if I were to recommend something by Hazelwood, I would definitely recommend this as one of like the top 2, this and Love on the Brain, definitely. And especially to someone who's like been in the fantasy genre and like needs something to transition. Off my grading, it's definitely above a 3, as you said. Like it's definitely like a passing grade. But in my opinion, what made this book so interesting is that I was listening to the audiobook. I'm not gonna lie, like I like listening to my audiobooks, but I found myself literally wanting to just stop it and just listen. And like at a certain point, I picked up like the actual like Kindle edition, and I just read it at a certain point because I really wanted to like have the details. So I think it could go up to a 4, definitely, because it's like, I was so into it, and I would have to reread it and like find it amazing for something to be over 4, but like in a year or so. But definitely a 4 plus. Like I know that I can't say plus technically, but like I'd say that it's definitely a 4 with the possibility of being a 4.5. Yeah. Okay. But definitely it's also because I am in love with the romance, and if she did a sequel, that would go to 4.5. So Ali, if you want a high grade from someone that you don't know or you met only once, but whatever, please write a sequel.
This is your sign.
That's your sign.
Yeah. Actually, one more thing I want to mention, touching on what you said about how you thought that she understood the female character very well. I thought that was also reflected in the male characters.
Oh, that's great.
Because often, I mean, it's hard to write about the other gender because you have to really be able to put yourself in their shoes. And even then, you know, your girlfriends or guy friends will like say, oh, maybe they wouldn't have done this or that. And so, sometimes when I'm reading a female author that's written a male character, it may seem a little bit like, not sure if a guy would do that. But with her, I thought that the characters did seem very real. And you could definitely relate to some of the things that Lo was feeling, some of the things that Alex was feeling, and they felt genuine and real. So I thought that, you know, her emotional maturity as an author to be able to understand and convey that was very good.
That's great. Honestly, we could have a whole video about talking about like how the female authors get female characters and male characters, and if you find that I think that like that could be a whole different like trove because it's so difficult. But that's a great note to leave it on, honestly.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because like the book Boyfriend is such a thing that's like, wow, amazing. It was great to talk to you, and I hope that you found it useful and that you picked it up.
Yeah, thank you for watching, everyone. Remember again, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and go check out the Life of Costy's channel as well.
And also my Instagram if you want to see my travels and also my book reviews that I do speedily.
I'll put that down in the link as well.
Thank you.